Series of Undercover documentaries. The programme reveals illegal treatment of livestock in some of Britain's pig farms and does contain disturbing scenes.
Last Christmas I went undercover making a film about turkeys reared on factory farms. I'm now off to have a look at the pig industry. Now, to be honest, as a born and bred city boy, when I go to the supermarket to buy a bit of bacon or ham or a nice leg of pork, I rarely stop to think about the actual pig that it came from. This is East Anglia, the heart of England's pig industry. I've been ringing around for work, and one company, Martlesham Piggeries, said I could come and spend some time with them, and they try and find a job for me. Saying I was an Australian farm worker, I was told to meet Mr. Johnson, the boss. The farm is a fairly typical, medium-sized intensive pig unit.
Well, pig production, at the end of the day, the bottom line is the number of kilos of pig meat you can get off per sow, per year. And the whole of it's wrapped up in there, isn't it?
Mr. Johnson was not how I'd imagined a typical pig farmer. Mobile phone in hand, he kept going on about his computer system which feeds the pigs automatically. I'd almost forgotten we were dealing with live animals, until he showed me inside his first shed.
This is a sow stall.
Right. So these are pregnant now?
Yeah, they're all pregnant.
Right. This is where the high-tech comes to an abrupt end. These sows spend their whole 16-week pregnancy here, eating out of a trough in front of them and excreting through slats. And heaped on that indignity, the new breed of pigs have outgrown their stalls.
Right, and these were put in 20 years ago, and the pigs were actually a bit smaller then, and so they had more room in here. Because the animals got a bit bigger, they tend to lay, because they're getting too small for them. The slats are now too short, the slats need to be back here.
The government has published a code of recommendations for the pig industry. It says the use of sow stalls like these raises serious welfare problems because they restrict freedom of movement and frequently cause injury and abnormal behaviour. Mr. Johnson's assistant took over to show me the next stage in the sow's life. Even when they're due to give birth, they're still stuck in metal crates, unable to turn around. This is the farrowing shed, where they remain to suckle their young. The assistant told me the crates stop the sows crushing their piglets. In the next room, 4-day-old piglets were having their teeth and tails cut off. I was told it stops them biting each other when they're placed in the crowded pens. Because these piglets are less than a week old, according to the law, they don't have to be given an anaesthetic. Tail docking is only legal if it is necessary to reduce the risk of tail biting. But here they seem to do it as a matter of routine. Next stop are the pens where the piglets are taken to be fattened up for slaughter.
Wow. These are growers. These are about 10 weeks old. Problem is, you imagine they get bored stiff in this thing long.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got no straw, no nothing. So it gives them something to chew on rather than start chewing on the tails still.
Right. So this is what is meant by indoor intensive farming. Their only distraction, a chain to chew on. According to the code, a bedded lying area should be provided. But these pigs will stay here on a hard slatted floor with no straw until they reach 5 months old and are ready for slaughter. To be honest, I wasn't too disappointed when I was told there was no work there for a couple of months. Some of the guys in Norfolk mentioned a farm here in Yorkshire that's apparently one of the biggest pig farms in Europe. And I gave them a call and they said, fine, come and work for a couple of weeks and we'll just take it from there. My first day's work at Medforth's pig farm, home to 40,000 pigs with a multi-million-pound turnover. The boss's son introduced me to Mark, one of the pigmen who I was to work with.
This is Will, Mark.
Hi, how you doing? Hi. Mark looks after one of the farrowing sheds. Row upon row of sows with their piglets. My first job was filling up the water bowls. Oh. You got a dead piglet here? It wasn't long before the previous night's casualties began to mount up. Should lay on all of those? Huh?
Tell them all being gasping.
All these piglets had been crushed by their mother, the very thing the metal farrowing crates were supposed to prevent. Piglets here are also vulnerable to infection and disease.
These sheds, there's 120 sows in here, so there'll be about 1,200 piglets. And out of that, sometimes we might lose 100, sometimes we might lose 200, like.
Right.
Sometimes we might lose half the shed.
Whatever it is, then.
Get some of these and we'll take it to skin. Yep. And we'll see if it price us out.
Pretending to be lost, I had a good look around the vast complex of sheds. The noise from one of them made me curious. The whole shed was full of sows wearing what looked like medieval chains and collars to stop them moving. This practice is called tethering. The code states that tethering in stalls raises serious welfare problems and strongly recommends alternative systems. The good news is that tethering in sow stalls will be illegal in a couple of years, but for the moment here, it's business as usual. Do you see Mark about?
Oh.
Mark?
There'll be one at shed.
Yeah, I'll find him. From the road, Medforth's is hidden, but looking around the rows of sheds, I realised just what a huge operation it is. When I caught up with Mark, I learnt it's not just piglets that are at risk on intensive farms. Oh, that pig's died?
Yeah.
So there's something out of that.
Dying, alright. All the diseases here, like, we've been to make, we see a lot here, which you probably won't ever see again, like, in other farms.
Well, because it's so big here.
Yeah, so big. Disease, you know, like, a lot of disease and stuff, pigs dying, it's caused by stress and being all so close together again, like, disease. That thing gets it, that thing next door gets it, you see, we've been so close.
Cool.
So you get loads of it, like, you know, so you might never see nowhere else.
By the end of my first week, I was in need of a break and some fresh air. I headed down to Wiltshire to see a very different sort of pig farm. This is Eastbrook Farm, home to one of the largest organic pig units in England. Here the pigs have the freedom to root around, explore and behave naturally. But this is no pig holiday camp. It is a successful commercial pig farm set up by Helen Browning.
Pigs are extraordinary. That's why I feel so strongly about them, really. I mean, they have such curiosity and such sort of joie de vivre, you know, they're full of beans. And they play, they get into gangs and run around. And people are fascinated by pigs.
When you started, did people think you were mad?
Completely crazy. I was just told you can't do it, especially finishing up the pigs outside, which is less efficient in terms of grain usage to a degree, but the pigs are so much happier. And so all the conventional wisdom was that this was not the way to go about it. But I think we've proved them wrong.
Is it commercially viable?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I couldn't run a unit like this with the people employed here without it being commercially viable.
Helen's pigs sell for 1.5 times those reared intensively. That's the extra price you pay. The pigs are to be raised in a relatively free environment.
You have to remember what a bright animal the pig is. It's probably the brightest of all the farm animals. And they're very curious. They want something to do. They don't want to spend their lives in some box just growing and feeding twice a day. They need more out of life than that. And they should get it.
Monday morning back in Yorkshire, and Helen's farm already seems a million miles away. When I met Mark, he seemed upset. He's conscientious and obviously cares about his pigs.
I lost 9 pigs this morning here.
In that one pen?
That's all there. She had 11 on this one.
Yeah.
Laid on one. The one left. It's that specimen fall over like that, like. That one there, like. The piglets have gone down there, so it's slowly and drowned.
8 of them fell in there.
Yeah.
Drowned in there.
Drowned and slowly, yeah. Because the shed, it's knackered, like. So if you look around here, you'll see loads of dead pigs instantly. What's fallen through, like. Just slack.
So what's happening here? It's got a few scratches on.
They rub themselves against these bars.
Sorry?
They rub themselves against bars.
Oh, it's got quite a lot.
Well, also it might be an awkward cell.
Right.
And the fellow brought it, what it looks like it is. The fellow brought it in. Probably give it a bit of an hiding on its way down here, like.
So you just, kick it when it...
Well, it's probably do something to it, you know. To lift it with a bit up. Right, no, I'm saying that though. These here, like, we're going against this bar here.
It's quite sharp.
Look, here. It's like
Here, just like at Johnson's farm, they cut off all the piglets' tails. My copy of the government recommendations states that this operation must be performed by a vet or a competent trained operator. And these guys were no vets. Does it hurt them?
That's right, it's screaming.
And what do you do with all the tails? Huh? What, the tails? Well, they eat them. It's so nice to finally be outdoors. The stench inside the sheds is just unbelievable. Mark was telling me his wife came to meet him at work one day and she hasn't eaten meat since. She was so shocked by the conditions she saw there. Now, having spent time with Mark, it's obvious that he is concerned about the welfare of the pigs, but he's stuck in a system where that's just a non-existent priority. But if I thought Medforce was bad, there was worse to come. The next day, Mark took me to a farm nearby, Coles. It's a fattening farm and they rear young pigs from Medforce. As part of his job, Mark goes twice a week to check on their progress.
What you'll see today when you go, like, the cell troughs, the great long troughs, like, the pigs will into, and half it's full of shit, like.
What, in their own troughs?
Where the food troughs are, like, you know, it's just, once one does it, they'll see it and they'll order it, like, and but if you clean them out every day, stop doing it, like, because they realise they're eating it, like.
Mark was totally unaware that he was being secretly filmed. What is all this?
I'll tell you all this shit all, isn't it? Like, this is all orange and pop that he gets. It's supposed to bring him food.
I was greeted by the bizarre sight of mountains of supermarket waste. Cola, yogurt and baked beans, which I'm told is boiled down and fed to the pigs. It soon became clear that Mark's warnings were not exaggerated. So how long's that been dead? When they started eating it, like.
See, it's been started to eat all his flat legs. Back end's gone to be eaten out.
Well, that's all pig shit, isn't it?
Pig shit, piss, matter.
This is actually the pig's food trough. Pigs are naturally one of the cleanest animals. Not surprisingly, the pigs here get a lot of diseases. Meningitis. By law, faeces and urine should be cleaned out as often as necessary to prevent disease. Mark has to do the job that should have been done by Cole's workers. He needs to get the sick pig onto the straw if it is to have a chance of surviving. Just take it out.
Yeah, put it in a bowl.
Right.
Leave it in there, it'll eat it.
The other pigs will eat it. The law states that sick pigs should be isolated to prevent unnecessary pain or distress. But at Cole's farm, Mark told me this is frequently ignored. Get it down. Sorry? Huh?
Must get close to the backbone. The cat walk and paralysed them.
So it got killed by them eating it?
Yeah, it's probably had meningitis like that. It's been down and just not even see it. See it, I don't know. No reason.
Well, I think I've had about all I can stomach from the Yorkshire farms. I got a phone call last night saying there's some work for me helping out with a pig haulage firm. The bad news is it's back down in Norfolk and I start at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. I was told to turn up at the depot and ask for Wilf, one of the drivers.
There you go.
Thanks.
I come to this farm a fortnight ago.
Yeah?
Picked up the load when I got to the slaughterhouse. I had 3 dead on the lorry.
So how did they die? I mean, did they...
I just walked in and knelt down and died.
Wow. Our first stop was the very farm that owned the 3 dead pigs Wilf was telling me about. As these pigs are loaded up, they're given an identity mark showing which farm they come from. It's like a tattoo and must penetrate their skin. This is a common industry practice.
You got to hit them hard enough so that penetrates into the skin, you see.
And how do the pigs react when you hit them with it?
They jump. Can you keep the pigs off his back?
Right. It wasn't long before I saw just how stressful the loading process is. So what's wrong with him?
Heat stress, basically.
So do they get panicked quite easily or excited quite easily?
They're just bred to produce meat and big muscle out here. They're not designed to run about in the countryside.
Can we get him through there?
You don't look so hot.
The farmer reckoned this pig would survive about 10 minutes crammed into the lorry, so his departure was postponed for a week. For pigs at the next farm we visited, there was no such reprieve. The law states that during loading, pigs must not be subjected to any injury or unnecessary suffering. This is obviously open to interpretation.
Pigs are ignorant.
Really?
Absolutely, the most ignorant animal you ever see.
Why?
You can't teach them nothing.
Sorry?
The trouble is, the first time they've been out of this building.
So they've never been outdoors?
No, never been out of this building.
I don't know about pigs being ignorant. Terrified seem more apt to me. The regulations also state that once on the lorries, pigs should have enough room to lie down. Their journey can last up to 15 hours. Well, this is the bit that I've been avoiding for so long. I'm off to a pig slaughterhouse. It's one that Wilf mentioned to me, and I gave them a ring and they said they've got a vacancy in the actual slaughter line itself. I'm going to go in today and they'll show me the ropes, and then if they like me I can start there next week full time. I think it's fair to say that there's definitely not a prospect that I'm relishing. I followed a small country lane before I finally reached Pilgrim's Pig Slaughterhouse.
Jason, you're on your way.
Oh great, so he's expecting a large Aussie, is he? Thanks. Before starting here, I found out about the slaughtering process. In theory it's very simple. The pig is stunned with an electric shock to its head, and while unconscious from the stunning, has its throat cut and bleeds to death. It should not feel anything once it's been stunned. Is Jason around? Are you Jason? Yeah. I'm Will. How you doing? Jason first showed me the stunning pen. Will, what's your name? Ryan. Ryan, nice to meet you, Ryan. So how long have you been working here?
Over a year now.
How many pigs a day do they do here?
Roughly about 200 an hour.
How many a day? Huh? Thousands a day. The law states that stunning should cause immediate unconsciousness and that the pigs must not be caused any avoidable suffering or pain. That's clearly not what I was seeing here. Once the pigs have finally been stunned, they're carried by shackles to the slaughter line. Brian, who puts the shackles on, was having problems. The pigs kept falling off. There is no law covering this contingency. Obviously, they should have been restunned immediately, but they weren't. This pig was left for well over 4 minutes, during which time it completely regained consciousness. It is illegal for anyone under 18 to be doing Brian's job. Next stop is the actual slaughter line. The guy who threw the shackle at Brian works on the slaughter line. He's nicknamed Snake, and he agreed to show me how it's done. Some of the images in the following scene were so disturbing that they had been partially obscured.
Why are they struggling so much? They're awake. Huh? They're awake. That's what I can never tell with animals, how you can tell whether they're dead or not. Right, moving. She's awake.
Later I checked this with an experienced slaughterhouse vet. He confirmed that eye movement is the clearest sign that a pig is waking up or conscious.
So what happens? Are they just not stunned long enough? Yeah. You can't stun them properly with their sense of me. Why not? Too many per hour.
When the vet was shown my undercover footage, he confirmed that a number of these pigs showed signs of coming around after their throats were cut. Snake spotted one down the line that was still struggling. The vet later said that the irregular running motion suggests the pig is regaining consciousness and seems to be trying to get away as it bleeds to death. What I've seen over the past 3 months is certainly horrific, but it's by no means unusual. More than 3/4 of the 15 million pigs reared each year in Britain spend their days indoors on intensive farms. The system produces cheap pork, but it also produces suffering and cruelty on a huge scale. I've seen the law flagrantly broken, and the government's guidelines appear to be worthless. Pigs certainly pay a high price for bringing home the bacon. The evidence of abuse uncovered in this film has been sent to the Ministry of Agriculture.
Catching the fakers and the fiddlers.
See that there? Yeah. That's a registered trademark belonging to